What is the creepiest glitch in the Matrix you've experienced? Story 1. I had an Android phone, which had a Google Cards feature option that could notify you like 15 minutes to home if you were out. I thought this feature was annoying and useless, so I kept the feature off. After several months of no cards notifications, one night I'm at home, and a card pops up saying 35 minutes to home pinning me at a random intersection on the other side of town. Let's call it First Street Story. I think that's weird, not even way over there. I don't even know where that is. I've never been to that area. I go to my card setting to turn it back off, but it's already turned off. That's weird. Next night, exact same thing happens 35 minutes to home from First Street. Story, what the? Still definitely not over there. Check cards feature, and the notifications are still turned off, so no idea why I'm getting a notification. Few days later, a friend and I are out running errands, and he misses his intended exit, so he takes the next one. Once on the streets, I ask where are we? I've never been over here. Suddenly a car to our right tries to turn left and crashes right into us. Messed up the wheel to be unable to turn, so he pulled forward to the curb to call a tow truck. We had our kids in the car, so I call my sister to pick us all up. When my sister asked me for the location, I look up at the street signs First Street Story. Story 2. I was 11 or 12, early 70s. Dad came home one Friday and announced we were going to Kings Island, a fairly new amusement park tomorrow. I begged him to let me invite my friend Chris to come along. He said okay, as long as Chris could pay his own way. Great. Off of the phone I went, pick it up, no dial tone. Hello, oh my God. Is that you, Chris? I was just calling you. What's up? I was calling to ask if you'd like to come to Kings Island tomorrow. But you have to pay your own way. No phone ever rang. We both called each other at the same time to ask the exact same thing. Story 3 was going down the stairs and went past my brother who was coming up the stairs, said hi, and he sort of mumbled back, got downstairs and walked through to the kitchen, only to find him standing there. WTF. Story 4, this is late and pretty stupid, but why not? I was once showering, and after about 10 minutes in the shower, I hear something ping and hit the floor. I looked down and saw a penny. I was pretty perplexed, as you can imagine, but figured whatever it'll keep it as I imagine it could be good luck. I kept the penny in my wallet for a few years in a zipped side pouch. I never really told anyone because it was kind of pointless to talk a random penny I was superstitious about. So a few years later, while at a music festival, a girl in our tent woke up to a penny in her crack. We all laughed it off as having a wild night. However, I remember the penny I had. And when I looked in the zip pouch, I was shocked to find it was gone. I told my friends, and they didn't believe me. I think they threw that penny away too. TLDR, teleporting penny. Story 5 had a dream of some kid that I had never seen before dancing at a busy party. He was wearing a blue shirt, black pants, had Bieber hair, and there was a purple strobe light on the wall behind him. Wake up, think to myself, what an odd dream, and carry on with my life. Several years later, I was at my cousin's wedding reception, chilling and hanging out with a different cousin. Music comes on, and we start jumping up and down, and then I realized that I was reliving the dream. Same clothes, same hair, same purple lighting in the background. Story 6, not sure if anyone will believe me or not, but here goes. When I was in high school, my friend Phil killed himself. I never really knew the specifics. All I know is that he shot himself at one of the local parks. Fast forward 6 years or so, and I'm asleep in bed next to my ex-wife. I'm having a fairly normal dream. I was at a store doing something or another. I can't really remember the specifics of the beginning of the dream. What I do remember is running into Phil in the store. When I saw him, everything got super weird. He actually looked like Phil. Not like in most dreams where people will be certain people but not look like them. He actually looked like Phil. He looked at me and smiled and said, "Hey man." At the moment the dream got crystal clear, I asked him if it was really him, and he said it was. He told me we were going to hang out for a bit, and after that the dream got super lucid. He showed me how to make stuff, and generally we just around doing dream things. Suddenly I realized that my dream was coming to an end. I turned to him and asked him if I was about to wake up. He said yes, and said he had fun coming to hang out with me for a bit. I don't know why, but I asked, so WHYD you do it, man? WHYD you kill yourself? The way he answered chilled me to my core. Not necessarily what he said, just how he said it. He replied, "My girlfriend cheated on me, man." He said it like it was a question had answered before. Like when someone asked you what your first job was, you've responded with the exact same sentence so many times that it just falls off of your tongue effortlessly. Except I'd known his girlfriend, and they were the kind of couple that everyone admired. I said, Sophie cheated on you. His eyes lit up like he realized he was talking to someone that actually knew him in life. He said, "Yeah, man, Sophie cheated on me." We gave each other a hug, and he wished me well. I woke up and felt super strange. It was somewhere around 2 or 3 in the morning. I closed my eyes and thought, Phil, if that was really you, I needed to give me a sign. No sooner than when that thought finished, my phone started ringing. It came across as an unknown number and only rang twice. I knew I wasn't dreaming anymore because my ex-wife woke up and sleepily asked me, who was trying to call me so late. To this day, when I think about that story, I get chills. Story 7, this one is more silly than creepy. But once when I went with my grandmother to her friend's house, I was on the porch by myself with the grandmother's friend's cat, and the cat looked me right in the eyes and said the word meow. It didn't sound like a cat meowing at all. It sounded very convincingly like a human carefully enunciating the word meow, 2 syllables, in their most thoroughly unconvincing cat voice, like someone intentionally doing a very poor impression of a cat, as a joke. But it was perfectly in time with the movement of the cat's mouth, and there was no one else around. So it had to have been the cat saying it. TLDR met a cat that could talk, but the only word it knew was meow. Story 8, I was getting on an airplane, and a ginger yelled out for some dude Sebastian at a different gate. When I landed, a different ginger called out for a different Sebastian. Story 9, I was walking my dog. On his leash, there's a little plastic attachment that holds his bags. I dropped the leash onto the ground. I heard the plastic hit the ground, but it turns out it ended up back in my hand. Imagine dropping something, hearing and seeing it drop. Then somehow it's in your hand, all under a couple seconds. Story 10, I took a hard news, soft news journalism class in college where one of the assignments was to write an obituary for one of my grandparents. The professor told us to write it on a deceased grandparent. But if all of your grandparents were still alive, we had to choose one. In my case, all of my grandparents were alive. I procrastinated the assignment until the night before it was due because it seemed like a dumb assignment, scrambling for an easy grandparent to write about. I gave my mom a call and asked her for some basic biographical information about my maternal grandfather who was still alive. As we were talking about my grandpa's career, my mom couldn't recall the name of one of the companies he worked at. She lectured me about waiting until the last minute to write the assignment because it was late, 10:30 p.m. my grandpa's time. However, she said she would give him a call to see if he was still awake and be able to answer that question once my assignment was due the following morning. Well, my mom called my grandpa. My grandma answered the phone in a panic. My grandma frantically explained that the paramedics had just arrived and were performing CPR on my grandpa because he had stopped breathing and passed out. My mom was able to stay on the phone with my grandma until they took my grandpa to the hospital, where he was declared dead. In the time my mom and I had been talking on the phone about my grandpa's obituary, he was dying out of the blue. At that, he had been otherwise healthy considering his age. We ended up using the obituary I wrote for that writing assignment as his actual obituary. Still freaks me out when I think about the timing, edit context. Story 11, I swear to God my mom told me my cousin died from an overdose a year before he actually did. So when she told me and I replied, yeah, from an overdose, right? She was shocked that I already knew. I thought she was somehow messing with me until she showed me his death date. I still can't really explain that one. Edit, a lot of people are mentioning that he could have overdosed before and survived, making it that I assumed he died the first time. The weird thing is that I barely knew anything about this cousin. My mom's extended side is very big with 22 first cousins, 42nd cousins, etc. So there's a lot of cousins Eve never met personally, and I specifically only remember being told about his drug addiction in context of it contributing to his death, since my family speculates it was intentional and not accidental. Basically, I never really knew much about him while he was alive. So while it's very plausible I could have heard about him overdosing beforehand, the way I remember it is very different. Memory is a fickle thing, though, so who knows? Story 12, I'm a security guard at a distribution warehouse. Sometimes I have to work graveyard shift. During this time, the only people on the premises is me and a rare truck driver bringing in a late load. Our guard shack is concrete, with sliding glass doors on the sides, no locks, and big windows in front and back. Sometimes when I'm the only person on the premises, you'll see a reflection of someone walking past the shack. Every inch of this shack and the yard is covered by security cameras. No one has shown up on the footage when I see these reflections. Story 13, when I was about 15, I was eating some cereal and accidentally dropped my spoon into the kitchen floor. I watched the spoon fall. As it hit the floor, it just vanished into thin air. I was shocked. I thought surely my eyes were playing tricks on me. It must have just bounced away and gone out of sight or something. I spent 30 minutes searching the kitchen for that spoon. I was honestly kind of freaked out. I tried to think of every possible place it could have gone. There weren't many places it could have ended up. I never found it. Edit, fix typo. Story 14, I have dreamed of 2 or 3 situations before they actually happened exactly as in my dreams. It can't be a DJVU, because I remember dreaming about it. It wasn't just a feeling of familiarity. Story 15, a few nights back I was wide awake in the guest bed at my place, and heard quiet footsteps, and then my wife say, hey, gently at the door. It seemed weird, so I got up to see what she wanted, and she was fast asleep in bed. Before you ask, I was in a separate bed as I have a cold and have been snoring really loudly. Story 16, not especially creepy, but it did used to unnerve me when I was young. When I was little, I used to have a Thomas the Tank Engine book with fold-out parts and flaps. There was this one part which was like a shed, and you could lift a flap to see inside it. Inside was all the usual gardening shed paraphernalia, but there was also a black cat sat in there. Hey, erase the glitch, though. I swear the cat wasn't always there. I used to love that book, but every time I read it, I would get to that page and guess whether the cat would be there or not. Not a clue what that was all about, really, but it creeped a young me out. Story 17. A couple of weeks ago, my dog Coda came into my room and started trying to jump on my bed, which she was successful of doing after a couple of tries, and I gave her a little nudge to, get off my bed. She jumped down and left. Then I heard my phone downstairs, so I walked down and get a call from my grandma, who said she made some food. So I said, okay, I will stop by and come eat. I get my jacket on and get ready to leave. I get my keys and grab my dog's leash to take her. We got in the car and drove for about 10 minutes, then arrived. I was eating and talking to my grandma and things, but when I was getting ready to leave, I couldn't find Coda. I searched everywhere in the backyard and the front outside. Nowhere to be found after a good hour of searching my grandma's neighborhood. It started to get dark. It was about 9:30-ish, so I decided to come back and check the next day. I left and went to sleep. The next morning I woke up because I heard something downstairs. To my surprise, it was my dog, and at that point, I thought, wait, what? Later, I came back to my grandma's to tell her I found my dog. As soon as I arrived, After I told her about how Coda was home, I thought to myself, did I even bring her? I asked my grandma, and she said, yes, I did, because I left the leash in her living room. I then asked my grandma to watch her footage on her cameras from last night, and there was no footage of the Coda in the street or leaving the front door, but there was footage of her entering the house with me. I went home later. Coda was still there. Until this day, I still don't know what happened. Story 18. In college, I delivered pizzas to make money. I had a delivery that should have taken about 20 minutes. When I returned to the store, the manager asked me what had taken so long. I asked him what he meant, and he pointed to the computer showing I'd been gone for an hour and 7 minutes. I don't remember delivering the pizza, only turning into the store when I was returning. Before anyone suggests aliens. No, my anus was not sore. I also don't drink or use drugs. 20 years later, I still have no idea what happened. Story 19. I have several times had multi-plane deja vu, as I like to call it. Basically, ID have a deja vu moment about something. Not too odd, but then later ID have the same exact deja vu moment again. And it's always super specific things, too. Story 20. Poured a freshly boiled water to a glass. Walked over to check my email on the phone for less than 1 minute. Am very sure because the same song is still playing. Walked back. The glass of water is room temperature. I might just have had a stroke. Never checked. Story 21. I was sitting on my porch and had my debit card on the table in front of me. I went inside to get something to drink, patio furniture in sight, and a 6-foot privacy fence around the yard. I also lived alone, went back outside, and it was just gone. I searched everywhere, inside and out, but couldn't find it. Nothing was withdrawn from my accounts, so 2 days later, I canceled it and requested a new one. 2 weeks later, I went out to sit on the porch. I did this every day, and the old card was sitting right there on the table. It just appeared. There was nothing else on the table. It just was gone. And then it wasn't. Edit got a few replies, so let me clarify. I lived alone. The porch was screened. I literally took off all the cushions on the porch, destroyed my house. The table was your typical glass patio table, and I sat out there every freaking day, and there wasn't anything on it. Then 2 weeks later, it was just sitting there on the table. Nothing was withdrawn from my account. I genuinely have no explanation. Story 22. Not long after 9/11 on a Friday, I got up to go to class and had one of those mornings, broke a glass getting something to drink, tripped over something in my car, was late to class due to a wreck on the way there. Not me, thankfully. While at school, we heard about a plane crashing, something about the wings blowing off. Went to work, went home. The next morning, my roommate wakes me asking if I'm skipping class today. After he convinces me it is still Friday, I get up and go to class. After noticing the glass I broke is not broke, on the way I pass the same wreck in the same spot. All day I wait to hear about the plane, but it never happens. Ends up kind of a normal day. The next day, they arrest the shoe bomber, and I have wondered if someone rewound that day to stop him, and somehow I didn't reset with it. Story 23. So, before my husband and I were married, we lived separately. He would come over and spend time, then leave later at night, like 11 or 12. He left one night out my front door, which is 3 locks, a lock on the deadbolt, and what I call a hotel lock. It's a lock that you flip the long piece over onto a short peg, and then the door can only be opened a few inches. Well, he left and used his key to lock the deadbolt, but I thought to myself, I have to go lock the hotel lock. I come down, and it's locked already. Absolutely no way he could have locked it from outside. Story 24. 10 years old, in Grandma's front yard. She keeps her yard immaculate, award-worthy. It's dusk, family get-together. Mom says toss me the car keys. So I do. My throw is short by finger lengths. I assume they landed in short grass, but we never found them. That was 30 years ago. The yard has been mowed hundreds of times. The house is still in the family, still well taken care of. No keys, ever. Story 25 of my childhood. Kindergarten, USSR. I distinctly remember the sky going dark for some time, teacher rushing us all inside. Then back bright again, unknown time later, my parents denied there was solar eclipse that day. I couldn't find any record of one, either those should check again. I distinctly remember that. Story 26, I've wrote about this before. It's one of the weirdest things I've experienced. When my now ex-boyfriend had just gotten together, I went out and bought him some new shirts. We had just fallen in love, and I saw a shirt that said Love Life on it in big red bold letters. The shirt was all white with only the words on the front. It was a little inside joke between us, I guess, because we would use that phrase to describe our life and named our business Love Life. He really loved it and wore it a lot before it sat in the closet for a couple years. Well, a couple years go by, and let's just say Love Life was a horrible definition of our relationship. He was horrible. Anyways, I'm cleaning out the closets, getting rid of old clothes, and there's a shirt. I pull it out, and the shirt now reads Low Life the exact same way it looked before, but it says Low Life. I immediately ask him if he remembers the shirt and what it said, and he tells me Love Life. Well, as soon as I show him the shirt, he flips out the same way I did. Both of us know that the shirt never said Low Life. Why would I buy anyone a shirt that said that, let alone my boyfriend? It's like I flipped dimensions into the reality where my ex was a complete abusive, and it showed up in the shirt. Edit for people curious, I found something similar, but not the exact shirt. It looked kind of like this, but the letters were bolder, more impact style font, and there was nothing below it or anything else on the shirt. Story 27, a few months before my first car accident, I dreamed about it happening. Everything from the sounds to the placement and the smell was the same. Thing is, the girl driving tried to get me to find a different ride because she didn't want to do any extra driving that day. And after the crash, I told her about my dream, and she said she had the same one the night before, and that's why she didn't want to drive. Freaky dude. Story 28, my partner and I have the same vivid memory of something happening that never happened. We are both convinced that our friend was with us at another friend's wedding, and he fixed the sound system during the reception. Except the friend, we remember fixing the sound system was not at the wedding and does not even know the person who was having the wedding, but we both distinctly remember our friend not only being there, but actually saving the day. We sometimes catch ourselves talking about it, and once praised our friend for saving that wedding, and he was like, what? Who's ex? I wasn't even there. Story 29, was playing Minecraft with friends over Skype on my desktop PC when I disconnected from Minecraft. I was still chatting with everyone on Skype when I checked my browser. That also wasn't functioning, so I got up and decided to check the router, announcing to everyone I was doing so. I checked it and it was fine. So still unable to connect, I asked the group, what should I do? And someone replied, check it's actually plugged, and I stood up while saying, well, how am I still talking to you then? Assuming it was so bug or partial disconnect. I at this point saw my Ethernet cable unplugged and about 2 centimeters away from the back of my machine. I announced this over Skype to everyone, and as soon as I did, the call dropped. This freaked me out for years until I saw a demo of someone scanning a VGA cable from across the room and managing to get an approximation of the picture. I guess I believe that VoIP part of the connection was able to make the jump across the CM or SO gap or something. But I didn't move anything at any point, and my partner at the time witnessed it as well. Luckily, or ID have thought I was mad. Before anyone say it, I didn't have a Wi-Fi option and still don't. My motherboard 100 doesn't have Wi-Fi, and I definitely didn't have a card for it separately either. I had even theorized at the time it was some kind of surveillance installed covertly on my computer that routed my internet via a different medium. But either way, it freaked me out. We'll never know for sure. Story 30. I was going to lunch with 2 coworkers. We were discussing another coworker. One CW made an assessment of the CW we were discussing, and I agreed with him. He looked at me and said he didn't say that he was thinking it. CW2 agreed. He didn't say it. Story 31. I once kicked the air. I was walking. My foot hit something as it was at its highest point in the air, and I stumbled over it. There was nothing there. Story 32. I swear I once repeated a day. When I was 10 at it, I was not expecting this to blow up while I was sleeping. I don't remember much since it was so long ago, but I do remember noticing that it was the same date as what I thought was yesterday. Besides this, nothing pops in my mind about it. Story 33. When I was little, I had a wooden doll crib that rocked that was maybe about 1.5 feet long. I kept it on the other side of my room from where my bed was. I had one of those dreams where you feel like you're falling and it wakes you up. When I woke up, the crib was sitting on top of me on my chest and abdomen. Edit, I feel like this is an important detail. I sat straight up when I woke up from the dream, and the crib fell off of me onto the floor and made a really loud noise. Some people are suggesting sleep paralysis, but I've never experienced sleep paralysis before or after, and if it had been, I don't think I would remember the crib falling onto the floor. Story 34. I was reading on my laptop in my bedroom, and suddenly I hear my best friend calling my name, and it sounded like she was talking through the phone. I look around for my phone. thinking she has called, and somehow one of my siblings has answered and has hid the phone somewhere to prank me. No phone around, nor siblings, and meanwhile my bestie is still talking answer me, "Why aren't you talking?" And then it goes silent. I get really nervous, start crying and asking my siblings if they have something to do with this. Or am I going crazy and hearing voices? They all try to console me. Later, I find my phone downstairs. The next day, I tell my friends about it, and bestie says that she did in fact call me last night. And I did answer, and she kept calling my name for a couple of minutes thinking I was playing with her, until she eventually hung up. To this day, I don't understand how the phone just answered the call on its own, and how I was able to hear my friend from upstairs. Story 35. One time in the middle of the night, I heard somebody scream my name. They just suddenly screamed Charles at the top of their lungs. Nobody was there, and my parents were asleep. Later that same month, my dad was making coffee, and heard me whisper in his ear, "Dad." He turned, and nobody was there. I have zero recollection of doing this. I have sleep paralysis a lot, which may explain the first one, but I have no idea how my dad heard me. I don't believe in ghosts, but this does creep me out. Story 36. There was one morning before school when I randomly thought, I haven't heard Hey Ya in a long time. It was a good song, though. Just a meaningless whatever. While brushing my teeth, I arrive at school, and all of my friends have Hey Ya stuck in their heads. They were humming it all day, and when I asked them about it, they said they thought about it that morning. None of us had heard the song recently enough to all be reminded about it. Story 37. When I was attending college, a friend and myself were walking back to our dorm late one night. I attended a school with a primarily white population. As we were getting within about a half-mile of our dorm, we were laughing about some joke when we noticed a black man in torn clothing running at us full speed. We both slowed our pace to a crawl as he kept coming at us. Unaware of what was going to happen, the man got closer and closer, and when he passed under a streetlight, we noticed a few things that were odd. He was sprinting away from something and be holding a rather large bowl of fruit. He sprinted past us without even regarding our existence. And when we looked back to where he had come from, we noticed what appeared to be a bear cub sprinting in our direction. Both my friend and I began taking steps backward slowly, and just as we were about to start following the man in the same panicked manner, the animal took a beeline for a curb toward what appeared to be a sewer drain. The closer it got to the drain, the smaller this animal appeared, until it was the size of a small mouse, and it went straight into the drain. Out of sight, the closer we got to the drain, it seemed to fade from view. When we were standing right next to the curb, it became clear there was no drain whatsoever. We proceeded to walk back in silence to the dorms. Still no clue what happened that night, but I remember several things during my time there that were unexplainable. Story 38. Going through my grandma's pictures after she died, we found a picture of my husband's mom and my grandma. This couldn't possibly be his mom, but it looked just like her. They also shared the same first and last name. No, we aren't related. We've had our DNA analyzed, edited. Story 39. I have a weird one. Back in October 2005, I met my now wife. We had first hooked up on a Saturday night at a gig in the city, and we arranged to meet again the following Wednesday night for a beer or a coffee. I remember feeling like absolute on the Wednesday morning after being out the night before at a bar for my birthday with my buddies, drinking and getting high and whatnot. I really did want to call her and see her again, but I felt so shitty that I just knew I wouldn't make a good impression. I had no energy, looked and felt like something the cat dragged in, and I just wanted to sleep. I was really dreading calling her to postpone in case she took it the wrong way and thought I was ditching her. When my cell phone rang that afternoon, I answered it automatically without really registering the number, as it was on an old shitty Nokia with a green 2-inch screen. It was a girl's voice on the line asking me did I mind if she took a rain check on our date that evening. She said she was hoping we could meet up again the following weekend instead, as she was really tired from work. Totally relieved, I said no problem at all. When we met up again on the following Friday, we got to talking, and I confessed that I was glad she had postponed our date, as I felt terrible the previous Wednesday. She replied that she hadn't called me on Wednesday afternoon and that she hadn't rain checked our initial date. She had, however, been expecting my call, and she told me that she had just assumed I didn't call her because I was being in. She said when I actually did call her on the Thursday to arrange the date, she changed her opinion and thought I was okay. My phone record showed I had accepted a call on Wednesday afternoon that lasted 3 minutes, but the number came up blocked. I guess in hindsight, I could have investigated further by asking the cell phone company to obtain the details of the block number, but I didn't really think too much about it back at the time. As time goes by, I sometimes wonder if whoever I spoke to on my cell phone on that Wednesday afternoon intervened in our lives in some way for some reason. We are married with children now, and from time to time, when I contemplate the events some Marty McFly beat TF comes in my mind. Who the knows? I just know it was something odd as a cod. Story 40 happened to a friend, But I'm kind of part of the story as well. I started this board card game club about 1 year ago, and myself and a small group have been playing Agricola board game there a lot. For some reason, I frequently hum lyrics to Killing in the Name of by Rage Against the Machine while we play. One of the guys I play with was going to another city with some of his friends, and they found a board game store where you could play some games in-store. They found Agricola and started setting up a game. When it had it all set up and was ready to play, he heard someone behind him tapping his fingers against the table and singing "Now You Do What They Told You." He freaked out, turned around, and expected to see me, but it was just some other random dude humming the same song. Story 41, I posted this on our Glitchinth Matrix, great sub. Check it out for more stories like this. A couple months ago, I was making a 12-hour drive and stopped for gas and snacks at some point. Prior to me leaving for this drive, I was talking with my dad about his birth year, 1969, and how my favorite music peaked then, the moon landing, etc., etc. When I stopped to snack, I picked up a few things and they equaled out to 1969. I thought this was interesting in and of itself. When I got gas, I filled it all the way up, low, and behold, the total of that was 1969 as well. Not very spooky or glitchy. Just my personal coincidence glitch in the Matrix experience. Story 42, my daughter and I were on the couch one day when she was younger, and we heard the sound of popcorn from microwave. It wasn't a constant popping, but 1 or 2 pops every 10 seconds or so. Then the entire living room filled with the smell of buttered popcorn. No one was making popcorn. The microwave itself did not smell like popcorn, and the smell was only in the living room. I went as far to open the heating vents to see if there was a rogue bag of popcorn in there. If it was just the smell and not the sound, or vice versa, I would easily explain it away, but it was still one of the strangest events. Story 43, I once fell asleep, wearing a pajama shirt. Yes, I'm sure I remember putting it on. Then I woke up in the middle of the night, freezing, only to realize that I had no shirt on. I turned the light on, and there it was folded on top of my bed table. I still don't know what happened that night, but it has never happened again. My first thought was that someone must have undressed me, as if I would have slept very heavily or something, and it creeps me out thinking about it. Edit after reading your answers, I guess I was sleepwalking. I've never done it before since then, but that seems like the only reasonable answer. But if that's the case, I'm good at folding clothes in my sleep. I should do it more often. Story 44, not sure if this counts. My ex would cry in her sleep from time to time. I'm a night owl, so if I was around her, I'd gently caress her head and say, "I'm here. Everything is okay." After a while, I'd wake up 10 seconds before she'd start crying to console her. Now, if one of my 4 kids starts to cry in their sleep, I'm already awake to console them. I love it, but always thought it was weird. Story 45, I was home alone reading a book. The sun was setting, and it was becoming hard to read. Suddenly, the room got brighter. I turned around, and 2 light bulbs in a chandelier that had been burnt out for weeks were on. They went back out 2 hours later while I was in the other room making tea, and the filaments were broken. Story 46, people probably won't believe this, and my girlfriend thinks I'm making it up, but whenever I look at a clock or watch during the afternoon, it's 13:37. When I first noticed it 6 years ago, I thought it was because I had the same routine at uni. But now I work full-time, and my work schedule is always varied, but the time is still 13:37. I could be eating lunch on a Monday, queuing up for a film at the cinema on a weekend, or lounging on a beach on holiday, and ITLL be 13:37.